Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to New Jersey Electric Vehicle Association. We have November meeting. It's 2023, and we have a very good agenda today. So I will start by saying what's some news. I'll introduce our new board, and then we will have a conversation with our very own Tom Moloughney from State of Charge. You know, recently there was some uptick in negative news about electric vehicles, and I was wondering where it comes from. Now, I do not necessarily have complete answer, but let me share a screen. I found some very weird YouTube channel. It's called Charge Drive. And I don't know whether you have seen it, but this is crazy. What they say is, you know, all these, the same motif, like we had no choice, no more EVs, no more EVs for every brand, right? This is Ford, Toyota, Chevy, Honda. When you look at the numbers, 103,000 views, 41. This one is 342,000 views. This is pretty huge impact. Jeep, BMW, VW, and then down here is even Elon Musk. Look at this. This is a threat. We had no choice. I don't know what they're talking about.
Stan, are you supposed to be sharing your screen right now?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, I'm not?
No.
You are.
Oh, you are? I'm missing it then.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, good. So anyway, so I just sent out yesterday the newsletter, and I went through some data, and I found this is quite opposite. You know, I can go show you, like, I don't have a deck today with me, but so this is pretty much false, because electric vehicles are the sales are going so much up. These are prices of conventional vehicles. Okay, you can see that from 2000, this is 2012. You know, what is the scale? 30,000, right? And now it's 48,000. And at the end of December last year, it kind of peaked close to 50,000. Now, the electric vehicles, they were also very expensive at that time, but now they are lower by 14,000. So this is substantial discount. And yes, the car makers are complaining because the prices are lower, but this is victory for the customers. So this is good. Now, and we can discuss it with Tom, but let me also announce the results of the elections for the New Jersey EVA board, because recently we got elections, and let me just do the entire screen, and here. So and I wanted to thank everyone who helped with this and who nominated. So as you know, nobody was running for the president, so I'm slipping into acting president role. Our new VP is Mario Caballero. Congratulations. Our secretary will be Dennis Burzan. He got 73% votes. And just for information, Dennis, he's not on the call today. He just cannot do Wednesdays, which means that we will have to do poll to find out what would be the new date for our meetings. Our monthly meetings are always the second Wednesday in a month, so we'll have to change. and I'll be the treasurer. So I'll have 2 roles. On this occasion, of course, I want to thank Alex Brown. He used to be our VP, and his contribution to the chapter was substantial. And Alex is not gonna go anywhere. He will continue in his volunteering, and we need him. So so that's about the elections, and I would like to now switch gears and invite our invited speaker, Tom Moloughney. Hey, Tom, how are you? Unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. I thought you had me muted. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being here.
Good to see you. I just made you co-host in case that you want to show something. And, you know, I wanted to have this conversation about, you know, we have lots of electric vehicle shows. People are asking, what's the deal about electric vehicles, how much they cost, and they always ask, so where do I find them? How do I find electric vehicle that is good for me? And we have a Plugstar tool, which we always show. Recently, we figured that actually to show them a better route planner is also very powerful, because we can tell them, look, if you are afraid to take your electric vehicle on a road trip, just open a better route planner, and you know, you can punch in all sorts of models and enter your departure location, your destination, and you can find out where do you need to stop for charge, how long you need to stop for charge, and stuff like that. So Tom, what do you think? How would you advise people to buy a car, electric?
Okay, so I take a little bit of a different route. I try not to focus on telling people to do research on how long it's going to take them to charge in public, because that's a bit of a pain point. And for many people, they won't really need to charge in public that often, particularly if they have the ability to charge at home. Now, if you're talking to someone that lives in an apartment building or a condo complex that doesn't allow public charging, that's different topic. But today, most people that buy electric vehicles, a huge percentage, have the ability to charge at home. And I try to focus on that and tell them, look, you know, you're very rarely going to use public infrastructure. When you do, it's going to take a little bit longer, but I don't necessarily lead with, you know, better route planner and look at, you know, when you take the road trips where you can plug in charge. That's a conversation down the road. But what I talk to them about mostly is, you know, how many miles do you think you drive a week? How many miles do you drive a day? And the fact that every day you leave your house, potentially, if you plug in every day, a lot of people don't plug in every day, but you could, you leave the house with a full tank. So, you know, the beauty of, one of the beautiful things about electric vehicles is, you know, you can easily recharge at home if you have that ability. So the public charging is like phase 2. Number one, when somebody's talking to me and saying, I'm really interested in getting an electric car, but I don't know if I could deal with the range or whatever, what I tell people do is, look, get a notepad and put it in your car. And every day when you're done driving, reset your trip meter and write down how many miles you drove that day. Do it for about 2 months. And then see how many days you've driven, say, more than 200 miles. You know, and that gives you an idea of what your needs are going to be. Now, of course, a couple times a year, you may need to go further, but you know that. You kind of know how frequently you drive far. And then, you know, you look at that little notepad, you say, geez, if I had an electric car, I would never have had a problem. You know, I'd leave my house, even a low range electric car. Like if you bought, you know, a Toyota BZ4X or something, that's one of the shorter range electric vehicles out today. 99% of the people would live fine with that, with daily charging. And then if you get an EV that has greater range, 300 miles or so, which a lot of EVs do now, you don't really have to worry about charging that much if you can plug in at home. So that's what I really talk to people about how infrequently you'll have to deal with going to a place and plugging in that. And then, when the question comes up, well, what happens when I have to? And then you talk about, road trips, and it might take you a little bit longer to get somewhere. But if you do that, like me, maybe 7 or 8 times a year, I have to go somewhere beyond the range of my EV. I have 300 plus mile EVs. So less than once a month do I have to go somewhere that I really actually need public infrastructure. And you be honest with them. You say, look, it's going to take a little bit longer to get to where you're going than where you than what it normally would in your combustion vehicle. But you know what? Take that time to have a cup of coffee, to just relax. Don't look at it as a stressful event that, geez, I'm waiting. If you have a job that would regularly take you a distance greater than what your EV's single charge range can do, well, maybe that's not the right choice for you right now. Because then it will become cumbersome. Then you will walk away with a negative opinion of EVs and say, EVs are terrible. They're taking me, I can't get my work done. It's holding me up. But for the occasional road trip, it takes you a little bit longer. Just take that time to enjoy life a little bit, and just sit there and relax. So that's how I approach it, Stan.
Yeah, and absolutely. And when we have those events, we pretty much say this to people. And sometimes we have to be able to deliver the message very quickly, So on few occasions, I just pretty much suggested what you said is about, except that I call it different. I said, do your driving audit, right? Make a record of how many miles you make a day, because people still fall into the narrative of range and they try to compare it to gas car. But what they don't realize is that it's irrelevant. What is relevant is your daily range. How many miles do you need to drive every day? So it's definitely that case. But so now I would like to have your opinion about and let's forget about and it's about 1/3 of all households in New Jersey. They do not have access to charging because they live in apartment complex or multi-unit dwellings and stuff like that. The state has program how to address that. They have grants available. But so for those people who have the privilege that they can charge at home, in some homes, they have their electrical panel is just stuffed up, and maybe they don't even understand what's going on, and they have a question like, how can I charge at home? What do I have to invest into? And so, of course, there are incentives from the utility, at least from PSE&G. You can upgrade your panel, but I was thinking, there are actually some other ways how to tackle that. Do you think that the choice of vehicle can have impact on what charging station must be installed?
Well, I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that. Like, what I would talk about choice of vehicle, you would want to maybe get a vehicle that's more efficient. Is that the line that you're going in?
Much.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Because for instance, I have a couple of EVs that are very inefficient. I own a Rivian R1S and a Ford F-150 Lightning, both of which get about 2 miles per kilowatt hour. So that's on the low end of efficiency, when there's EVs out there that get, close miles per kilowatt hour that are much more efficient than my electric vehicle. So if you are, let's say, charging challenged and you don't have access to the ability to install a 80 amp home charger that I have right behind me, maybe you're stuck charging at 16 amps, then you might want to consider a more efficient electric vehicle, because the same amount of electricity that might take me 20 miles in my F-150 Lightning will take you 60 miles in your, Tesla Model 3. So yeah, I think that's something to consider if you don't have the ability to just install high powered level 2 charging at your house, then you might want to consider looking at the EVs that are more efficient.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I wanted to address, because I still see lots of people who have Nissan Leaf, vehicles like that. It's also on the more efficient side, and they say, well, I just use 120 volts, regular portable cord, and it gives them what, 40, 50, 60 miles a night, and that happens to be enough. And so I was thinking that if you have a vehicle that has 2 miles per kilowatt hour, then pretty much this charging is it's impossible, right? What do you think?
Yeah, if you've got a big vehicle that's heavy, that's inefficient, level 1 charging on a regular 120 volt outlet, I won't say it's impossible, because I had a month when I was reconstructing my garage. We're in my garage at my house right now. I renovated it to make a studio for filming State of Charge. And so for a month while I was undergoing all this renovations, I didn't have a level 2 charger, and I was charging my Lightning from level 1. But so basically every minute I came home, I had to immediately plug it in and charge. And I actually functioned with it that way. It worked. It was very difficult, but it worked. But it would be a lot easier if it was a more efficient electric vehicle.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, I'm not saying it won't work if you have a big battery. It's very difficult, and you probably don't want to live that way.
Yeah.
If you're stuck charging on a regular 120 volt outlet, you probably want an electric vehicle that gets at least 3.5 to 4 miles per kilowatt hour on average, because now you could make it work as long as you don't drive, say, more than 30, 40 miles a day.
Yeah. We have a question from Eric about how fast does your Lightning charge on 80 amps level 2 from 20% to 80% state of charge?
Oh God, geez, Eric, I haven't done that calculation, but with charging losses, I'm pumping about 17 kilowatts into the battery. So, I've got 125 usable kilowatt hours. Multiply that by 60 if you're looking for 20 to 80, and then divide it by 17. And that's how long it takes me. The thing is, I don't really charge from 20 to 80%. I typically charge the vehicle when I get down to about 30 or 40%, and then charge back up to 90%. So, I don't really have that exact amount, but I can tell you it charges quickly because I'm pumping a lot of power in with that charger there.
Yeah. So from
big
30
charger, I like it.
Yeah.
From 30 to 90, that's also 60% difference. But and I think, yes.
I was going to make a joke. Do the lights in Montclair dim when you use the 80 amp charger?
So I'm out of Montclair. I actually sold the restaurant in 2016, and I sold the property last year. I live in Chester, so I'm out in Morris County, and I did a major service upgrade last year. I upgraded. I have a 400 amp service to my house.
Wow.
And most people don't have to do that. But as you can see, I have 80 amps going there. So that's a 100 amp circuit. I've got 60 amps going to the Tesla charger. I have 2 NEMA 1450 outlets. So I have I don't even know. I should know by now, 260 or so amps just coming into my garage, let alone the house. But that's because it's my job. People wouldn't do that if they needed an electric vehicle.
I'm out of Montclair too, so I'll join.
Yeah. So, but with the 400 amp service, the lights don't dim when I plug in.
Yeah. What power service would you recommend for people who have average house size and they want to have one electric vehicle?
So, it'd be great if they could have a 200 amp service. That should be fine. But many people could actually be just fine with 150 amps. You probably, most people are going to have, say, a 60 amp feed for a 48 amp charger. And, if they have a 60 amp feed, their house is just fine with with 150 amp main service, unless they've got an electric cooking range, all electric appliance, electric heat, then you need more. But
Right.
I think 150 to 200 amps is plenty for most people. And you know what, Stan, now a lot of companies are coming out. We haven't seen them yet because they're all in development. I have a lot of companies reaching out to me to ask me if I want to review them, and they'd actually come and install them in my house for free. These new smart panels, and they actually are, it's really good because you'll be able to do more with less. So, you may be able to function with 100 amp service and still charge your car at high speeds because they intelligently balance the power across your home's needs. So, this is all coming in the next couple of years. So I think a lot of people that have electric vehicles that are coming, will be able to, it would behoove them to just get a smart panel installed rather than doing a full service upgrade, because a lot of like I have a, let's say before I had 200 amp service. I never use 200 amps, but because they do these load calculations based on, well, what if you used everything at once?
Right.
Then you
it's a
need
worst case scenario.
Right. But that never happens. I don't have, my pool pump running, the 80 amp charger going, the wall oven on, the microwave running, like I don't have everything going on at once. So what happens is these smart panels will allow you to have all that stuff, and it'll intelligently load balance it. And if you do start hitting the limit, it'll start shedding power. It'll say, okay, we're going to shut that car charger off for half an hour until you stop using your electric clothes dryer or something like that. So this is next gen stuff, and it's all in the works now. Span has a panel now. There's a couple other companies that I've been working with. Emporia is coming out with one. A bunch of companies are coming out with these, and I think we're going to start to see them become mainstream.
I actually noticed Emporia, and I thought that was very interesting. I do have Emporia system to measure my load, and I have been measuring it for about a year now. And that was very interesting because in January 2023 was a month where my electricity was the highest consumption because I had to charge 2 electric vehicles, and I switched the heating for heat pump. January was not particularly cold. Obviously, if the temperature is very low, then the system would revert to gas furnace. But in January, I remember that the gas furnace fired up only a few times. I had the record low consumption of natural gas, and that's on that month. For January. And what I noticed that in no point, even though I used the record amount of electricity, I didn't hit the requirement for more than 100 amp service. I have 200 amp service. I upgraded it because one of my neighbors who also got electric vehicle, he told me, oh, you have to upgrade, and the Emporia system also shows the 15-minute peak, which is important for businesses, not for residents. But and that's actually the value that I was using to assess how big was the requirement for the system. And just for your information, I'm using 16 amp charging for both vehicles. Of course, not at the same time, but that's pretty much where the load management on my end comes, because I never charge 2 vehicles at the same time. So yeah.
Sometimes I'm charging 4 at once here.
Can I
have a party?
Can I ask you to do show and tell and show us like your 2 favorite chargers on the wall behind you?
Oh God.
If you had to pick a couple, do you have anything like really cool back there?
So, no, I don't really have anything cool. I mean, I could pick up the camera and move it over. Let me see. So, and those are boxes over there of chargers that are waiting to be reviewed. So, a lot of people talk about your favorite charger, and they ask me, I'm like, they're like my kids. Like, I don't know if I have favorites. You know, there's a couple that I really like. I do like the Emporia. We're talking about Emporia, and one of the reasons why I like it is because the price. It's really affordable. And when I do my reviews, I weigh price heavily because I think if it's a good quality unit and it costs markedly less than the other units, then it's going to get a lot of bonus points for me, because I think people shouldn't have to pay $800 for a charger. And the Emporia comes in at a really good price point. And I've talked to Sean McLaughlin's the CEO. I've talked to him frequently, and he wants to collaborate with me on a bunch of things. And one of the things that he talked about was the fact that they don't make all their money selling this charger. So like they can afford to work on shorter margins. Some of the other companies that's what they make, like that's their bread and butter. So he's like, you know, yeah, we've got really small margins on it, but I just want to introduce people to the Emporia ecosystem, which Stan talked about before, energy management and things like that. So I think that's really good. It's one of my top rated chargers. The new Tesla universal wall connector is also one of my favorite chargers. And you know, I was really lucky. Tesla sent me 2 of these, and I am the only person in the world that Tesla sent this to before its launch. So that was pretty cool. And you know,
Wow.
as you can see, so it's got the Tesla connector.
Right.
But then it has the J1772 adapter. Now, once it's removed from the body of the unit, I can't take this, or it's tethered to the connector. You can't remove it. But if you're charging a Tesla, when I push it in, now I just pull it out, the Tesla connector comes out. So you got to press a button in order to release the J1772. It's a really great design. And I mean, it's
a great way not to lose the connector.
Yeah. And
Exactly.
it's hard for me to recommend against it, because, you know, now that the North American charging standard is really going to become the de facto standard for all North American vehicles, there's still going to be a lot of legacy J1772 vehicles. So if you perhaps have 2, you know, this thing's fantastic. You don't have to use an I mean, it is an adapter, it's built in, but you don't have to buy a third-party adapter. You don't have to worry about taking it on and taking it off. It's all built in this neat package. So, you know, really, if you want to talk about my favorite chargers, maybe the Emporia and the Tesla Universal connector, as far as level 2 chargers. You know, then I have portable chargers. The J Plus booster is probably my favorite portable charger. There's a lot that are pretty good. The wall box is a really good unit. The ChargePoint Home Flex is a really good unit, particularly if you're mounting it outdoors and you're in a cold weather area, because it has the best cable of any charger I've ever tested for cold weather.
Which one is that, Tom?
The ChargePoint Home Flex.
Yeah.
Because I do these deep freeze tests where I freeze the chargers at -15 degrees for 24 hours, and then I test how flexible the cable is. And the ChargePoint Home Flex just rocks it. It freaking thing, when it comes out of that freezer, if it bends like it did when it went in. I don't know what. It's like witchcraft. The other charging cables are like stiff, and some of them don't. Some of them are terrible. I don't know if you guys watch my reviews. Some of them, they're like a frozen garden hose when they come out. And I could just imagine plugging and unplugging your EV. If you live in, like, you know, Wisconsin or something, you get out in the morning, it's 5 o'clock in the morning, going to work, and you unplug it. You got this cable that won't even bend, and you're trying to bring it back to the charger to you know, plug it back in. Yeah, it's like these things are things that a lot of people don't consider, you know, when a lot of companies don't consider when they're making these. And the funny thing is, you know, since talking about this, I can't really mention the company, but a major OEM just sent me an email today and said, look, we've been studying your charging videos, your reviews, and nobody seems to be doing what you're doing. Could we hire you to help us develop our own home charging solution? And, you know, so I've just begun that conversation with them, but it's good to be recognized that, you know, the car companies see what I'm doing. I mean, I spend a lot of time on my charger reviews. You know, they're like hour-long videos, but it takes me 3 weeks to produce them. And those videos don't get a lot of views compared to, like, say, you know, I'll do a video on, you know, a first drive or something on a car. I'll get 80,000 views. A charger review gets a couple thousand views. So I actually lose money making that. It takes me 2 or 3 weeks and I make like $300, you know, for 3 weeks of work. But I do it because I love doing it, and I love helping to teach people about charging and explain to them that there's difference in these things. Don't just go to Amazon and click on lowest price and buy this. You know, there's a difference in these units.
Yeah. Tom, what is your opinion about the LCD display on those units? Because I don't know exactly how is the Emporia, but definitely Tesla doesn't have any display. Why some charger makers choose to have a display?
So, well, some of them, let's say the Leviton behind me, which is the latest review I just did, that hasn't a display because it's not a Wi-Fi connected smart charger. So you can't get that information through an app. So, you know, you either have no information or you put a little display on it. I like the displays. I like when I plug in to stand there for a few seconds and make sure it's pulling the full charging power that you're expecting it to. So I'm a fan of those displays. I'd prefer to do that than have to open up my app and you know, view it that way. Now, the one thing good about the apps though is they keep, many of them, not all of them, they keep good charging record history. So you can you know, you can look at, okay, this month I spent, you know, $48 to charge my EV. Whereas if you don't have that type of you know, an app that stores that stuff, it's hard to know exactly what you're paying to charge your car. You know, you own a gas car, you know what it's costing you to fill it. But with an EV, a lot of people, you could kind of do the math and say, well, you know, car's got a 60 kilowatt hour battery, and every time I charge it, I charge from, you know, 10 to 80%. So it's cost me $14, you know, but the apps are good because they put it in easy buckets for you. You enter your what you're paying per kilowatt hour, and then every month it tells you, okay, this month you spent this much, this month you spent this much. So I like that in the apps. But if it's not going to be a Wi-Fi connected smart charger with an app, then I like having these display units.
Very good.
I got a question for you. It has not come to New Jersey yet because they haven't certified it, but I believe right across the river, Pennsylvania has certified, I don't know how to describe it. I guess they're called collars, right? So
Yeah.
rather than having to put up another circuit on the panel, they just clip it onto the input to the house before it even hits the panel. Have you looked at any of those yet?
So is that the one that's made by Siemens?
I think Siemens is one of the manufacturers. Yeah, there's
Yeah. Yeah. So I haven't looked at them yet. You know,
it looks like what it does is it sits between, you know, because it clips literally onto the meter, and then it
I know what it is.
before.
I just haven't physically looked at one yet. And
Right.
I know I think Siemens was either Siemens or Bosch was the first company to come out with one like 2 years ago or something like that.
Mhm.
And when I reached out to them, what they were talking about was getting it approved by the municipalities, because this isn't, say, a new technology. I don't know, a while ago, maybe 25, 30 years ago, one or two companies came out with something very similar. And the problem was many utilities just banned them and said, we're not going to approve this for installation. I don't technically know why they did that. But and I know when Siemens first came out with this, I started talking to a few people in the industry, and they were like, well, let's watch and see what happens, because I know when these were introduced back in the 90s or whatever it was, the same technology, but it was for a different use. It wasn't for car charging. I think it was for central air, because some people couldn't install central air in their house without service. I forget what it was, but you know, it allowed you to say draw more than what your panel could produce. But then if you were hitting your limit, it would shed that device. It would cut off the power to it. And I know California led the charge to ban them. Like the California electrical inspectors just flat out wouldn't accept them. Now, maybe it's different now. So and as you said, would you say Pennsylvania or Connecticut just say is approved them?
I
So-
think PA has already approved it, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know what the status is like throughout the country. I don't like for New Jersey, for instance. And I don't think that'll be a statewide decision. The state can recommend that it's approved, but it ultimately will come down to each municipality, I forget what they call it, the authority in charge, the AIC or something, like your local electrical
Electrical guy.
inspector.
The
is the-
electrical township inspector is the guy
Yeah.
who has the ultimate key.
They're the ones that have the ultimate, like the state can say, we approve this. And if your township electrical inspector says, you know what, I just don't like these things because I don't think they're safe, then you can't use them. So it's kind of weird that that's how it works, but that is how it works.
Yeah,
Isn't
we're
it
coming
that-
across we're coming
Sorry.
across a similar phenomena right now where some of the townships are abiding by the 2020 code, which says that you have to have a GFCI circuit if you're going to do the EV circuit, and then it wreaks havoc with the existing EVSEs that already have GFCI built into them. Then
They all do, not some of they pretty much, well, I don't know about all of them, but just about all of them have built-in GFCI.
right, which
So,
then conflicts with the fact that the inspector insists that
Yeah.
the circuit's GFCI. Then it's like,
Yeah.
okay,
And you'll have nuisance stripping. So what I know a lot of people do when they're forced to do that is they get it approved with the GFCI breaker, and then they pull it out the next day and swap it with a non-GFCI breaker.
Hmm.
I'm not recommending people do that, but I know people do that.
Don't you need to remove the meter actually to hook it up?
No.
Because you have to get into the space between the meter and the
The
plate.
breaker is a GFCI breaker.
The
No,
breaker.
how when you connect it to the collar, connection of the collar to the
Oh,
meter.
we're talking about two different things right now, Stan. You're still talking about the collar that you put
yeah,
on.
yeah.
Yeah, I think Andy and I transitioned to talking about the GFCI protection
Yeah,
on the circuit. But yeah, no, you can't remove that collar. I don't think you can. But I'm just talking about
yes.
if
But
the
when
if your coat.
when you install the collar, can you do it without removing the meter, or you have to remove the meter?
I don't know. I haven't installed it yet. I haven't really looked hard into them yet because I was waiting to see if they were generally going to be accepted before I did like a thorough review or partnered with a company to
Right.
say, come put this thing in my house and let's do a video on it. So,
Yeah.
you know, I've been waiting.
Stan, I just posted in the chat.
I'm
link.
trying to go through the questions because
Yeah,
I have ignored some. So
that's okay. Yeah, no, just that one company, Connect DER, has a nice description and shows you how to connect your solar directly, and it says to connect your EV through it. That's coming soon, so they don't have that portion quite yet, but that's
okay.
where things
So,
are going.
but let's go through those questions. Billy Conlin, he's asking, do you find that most people have a charger at home prior to the EV purchase? I don't think that would be the case.
Yeah, no, most people are not prepared.
Yeah.
You know,
And
it depends. There's certainly a good deal of number of people that do it ahead of time, but you know, a lot of people
and
aren't prepared.
right, and just
Scramble.
like we said, you can charge on regular power outlet, which will give you a reasonable amount of miles every night, and that will take you through before you install the charging station.
Yeah, but I still recommend people, if you think you're going to do it, have that done first, because number one, if you don't have it done first, well, what if you find out you can't install a charger, your service panel's maxed out, and now you're in for a $5,000 service upgrade? Well, maybe you didn't budget for that. Maybe you can't afford that. So find out all that first. If you're thinking about buying an EV, you know, have the electrician come over, do load calculations on your house, get all that stuff out of the way before you dive into the EV. I think that's a prudent way to handle it.
Mario was asking if you can elaborate how difficult was it to get your your system upgraded to 400 amps.
Okay, so it was pretty simple. You know, it was you call your utility and you tell them that you're requesting a service upgrade. They're going to ask you why. They're going to ask you a bunch of questions to make sure you need a service upgrade,
Mhm.
you know, and basically I talk to them about what I do, and look, you know, I need like more than 200 amps in my garage alone, let alone my house. And I've got some major draws in my house and everything. So they were like, okay. And then the only problem I had was the, so, you know, it provided everything's approved, you know, and they say, okay, we could do that. They send a representative out, they look at your house, they check your transformer and all that stuff. And then if it gets approved, they give you a DR number, they call it. I don't even know what DR stands for, but they give you a DR number, disconnect request or something. I don't know. And you give that to your
demand response.
Demand response. You give your you give that number to your electrician, and they use that number to pull the permit to do the service upgrade. And then from there, your electrician really deals with it. They coordinate with your utility to you know have it swapped out that day, and you swap and they come and do it, and then you call for final inspection. That's it. You just need a final inspection, not any other type of inspection. My problem was the transformer in front of my house is very old, and the utility said, well, that transformer only services your house, because I live in a rural area in Chester here, so it's not a lot of houses. So I was like the last house in the line, and they put a transformer in front of my house. So they said, you know, we're going to need to upgrade that transformer to do your service upgrade. And that you have to pay for that. If we need to do a service upgrade, you have to pay for that. It's gonna be like $5,000 for the new transformer or something like that. And I was like, well, that's crazy. Like, you know, so I talked to the guy for a while, and just, I mean, the transformer looked old. It was like rusty and everything. So I said to the guy, I said, you know, how old's that thing? You know, like, don't you guys replace these things regularly? Like, it looks super old, isn't it? Is it due to be replaced? Like, and I'm the one footing the bill for what you should be doing for regular service. So the guy looked at me and he goes, you know, this does look pretty old. He goes, let me look into it. So he called me up like 3 or 4 days later. He goes, Tom, he goes, that thing's been up there since the 80s. He goes, you're 100% right. It's due to be replaced. We would have replaced it with the same size, but since we have to replace it anyway, we'll replace it with the upsize so we could do your service upgrade, no charge to you. So it's always good to ask questions, you know, and I saved myself some money.
Okay, another question from Mario. What do you recommend for connection, NEMA 1450 or hardwiring?
Hardwire all the way. If you have the opportunity to, you know, I used to tell people to do the plugins, because I said, well, you know, if you needed to take the charger with you and go somewhere, or you decide you want a new charger, you know, it's easy to swap it out. But through the years, and I've been doing this for a long time, guys, I've been driving EV since 2009. I've been reviewing electric vehicle charging equipment since maybe 2012. I've seen and worked with every charger made since 2012. More than 100 of them. And I have a lot of followers. I'm blessed with having a lot of people that like what I'm doing. And I can't tell you how many people have had problems with their NEMA 1450 outlets through the years that have sent me pictures of like fires in their garage and burned, you know, fried. I mean, how's that NEMA 1450 outlet for you?
Awesome.
So, you know, and if it's done correctly, 100% correctly, and all of the connections are torqued to the proper torque rating, and you buy a high quality outlet, you know, not a Leviton, never, if anybody that can hear me talking right now has a Leviton NEMA 1450 in their house, change it now. The Leviton NEMA 1450s are not designed and built for the duty cycle of electric vehicle charging. And you say, well, what's that? What, you know, it's a NEMA 1450. It's, you know, it's got to be able to handle it. No, it doesn't. EV charging puts a strain on the charging equipment or the line, the more than anything else you'll ever use. There's nothing else that takes this much load for such continuous periods of time, sometimes every day of the week. So while NEMA 1450 outlet can deliver up to 50 amps for a short period of time. It's you have to get a good one like a Hubble that is an industrial grade one, and you can't just trust when companies write industrial grade because there's no certification for industrial grade. Leviton says it's an industrial grade outlet. It's not. It's garbage. I've dozens and dozens and dozens of these that have failed that my followers have sent me. I'm going to make a video next week. I had somebody with a Leviton NJEVA 1450 that his garage went on fire. He had a condo, and we're going to do a charging safety video on it. So if you do it right, and even when you do it right, I tell people once a year, shut your power off, open the NJEVA 1450 up, check your connections, crank them, make sure they're nice and tight, because they do, the screws do back out from the extreme heat and then the cooling. Especially we live in New Jersey, so our garages get cold in the winter, so they can go from being 40 or 50 degrees to up to 120 degrees when you're charging for 7 or 8 hours. Then you unplug, and 4 or 5 hours later, that NJEVA 1450 is down to 40, 50 degrees again. That extreme temperature difference actually backs the screws out, the expansion and contraction of the metal. So I tell people, make sure you don't have aluminum wires. That's number one, because no electric vehicle charging should be done through aluminum wires, because aluminum wires expand and contract 30% more than copper wires. There's too much flex there, and your connections will back out, and you'll arc and you'll spark and you'll fire, or something bad will happen. And then if you're going to use a 1450, get a high quality one. Go on, when this is over tonight, go to Amazon and do a search for NJEVA 1450 outlets. The Levitons cost $10, $9.95. And then there's ones from like Hubble that are $90. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket science to understand. I mean, either Hubble's getting really fat on making huge profit margins, or there's a big difference in quality in those two units. And the NJEVA 1450s, many of them on the market, are not up for the duty cycle that electric vehicles puts on them. So if you have the opportunity, I highly recommend you hire a qualified electrician, not just, John from down the block that knows electric, someone that does electric vehicle charging installations frequently, because they'll come with torque wrenches and they'll torque the connections to what the manufacturer specification is. That's really important. You can't just crank down on it hard and say, okay, that's good enough. It should be torqued to the right torque level, and they'll use quality equipment. You're going to pay a couple $100 more to have it done. But you just spent $50,000 on an EV, and you're saving $300, and you're putting your family at risk. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah. This is very good comment. I actually didn't know that because I don't have NJEVA 1450, because with my charging only 16 amps, so I have L620. So I have actually outlet that is rated for 20 amps or 16. So
probably is it 20 amp circuit or 30 amp circuit delivering 20 amps?
I think it's a 20 amp circuit, and I'm drawing 16.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's still, Stan, it's still not crazy for you to once a year shut the power off with the circuit breaker, open it up, make sure everything's cranked down nice and tightly. Now, with that level of power, you're probably not going to have a problem. The higher the power draw, the more likely you're going to have problems. I mean, this Ford Charge Station Pro behind me, when Ford released it, they had the torque ratings at I think it was 40 pound-inch. And a year later, they revised it to 60. And they made all the installers go out and open them up and crank them down, because they found out a lot of the owners that the screws were backing out. And that's, that was the manufacturer specified torque rating, and it still wasn't good enough because it's such high power.
Yeah. Okay, good. I have another question. So, and we will be eventually pivoting to the question that Eric Wise has. But so today we had actually in Alex's workplace sustainability fair, and lots of people who just right out of bed would refuse electric vehicles. But a growing number of people are insisting that they're waiting for the hydrogen fuel cell not electric, hydrogen. Of course, it's electric, but they're waiting for hydrogen fuel cell vehicle, and they're telling, oh, it will be much better. And I'm still questioning. So, what do you think it will make it better? What would you say to people who are delaying their purchase of, wonderful electric vehicle, and they say, I want to wait until hydrogen fuel is out there?
So I don't try to convince people that aren't necessarily ready for an electric vehicle that they should get one. They will in time. I don't think hydrogen's ever going to be a way that we refuel personal transportation. I think long haul trucking, aviation, I think those might make sense for hydrogen, but I don't think we'll ever build out a nationwide network of hydrogen refueling station. We'd need as many of them as we have gas stations, and hydrogen stations cost a lot of money to install, more than gas stations. I just don't see that ever being the case. And if you want to say, well, what would you say to somebody that says that? A hydrogen vehicle is an electric vehicle.
Of course it is.
Yeah. So
It's a hybrid.
Exactly. I would, if I were to try to convince someone, like I said, I don't. I would say, well, okay, so you are interested in getting an electric vehicle. Why don't you just eliminate that whole Rube Goldberg system of creating the energy and just plug the damn thing in? We're creatures of habit, Sam, and people are so used to that 5-minute refuel, and they unless they live with an EV and realize that the longer charging time really isn't that much inconvenient, it's hard for people to get their hands around that. They think that they're going to be tethered to this thing and just waiting for it to charge, and every time they need to drive the car, it won't be ready to go, which, as we all know here, that's not the case. And they just look at hydrogen and say, well, it's just as fast as gas, so that's what I want. That's the zero emission I want. I want to just be able to go somewhere and in 5 minutes leave and be done. And it goes back to that saying that, and we don't even know if Henry Ford says this, it's been attributed to him. Well, but there's nobody really knows if he actually really said it. And the quote was that if I had asked, people what they wanted before I made a car, they would have said a faster horse.
Right.
And it's because unless you've lived with an EV, unless you've dealt with it, you can't understand how easy it is going to be to make that transition. So people want to stick with what they know, and they know that 5-minute refuel works, and they want to stick with that. And they could see hydrogen being the zero emission 5-minute refuel. So, well, that's the zero emission I want. I don't want to deal with this plugging in stuff. And it's just going to take time. And
and I can also add to that I just swallowed that, but okay. So there is actually lots of push for hydrogen fuel cell, even from governments, and they are having grants, and they are giving the money to groups, like even academic groups, and they ask them to make a report. Here in New Jersey, BPU actually made that request to Montclair, and Montclair had a committee where they invited people from industry. Right. So, of course, and they invited people from the industry that is vested in the success. If hydrogen would come in, they would make money. So I was looking into that report, and they were making lots of assumptions and using hydrogen for making electricity for as an energy storage, right? And to tackle the gap in efficiency, because the fuel cell has 50% efficiency, they said, oh, there could be cogeneration for heat, right? Now, how are we using cogeneration today, right? It's all nonsense. And the other thing is, my background is chemistry. Okay, so I was looking into what are we using hydrogen for today. Okay, today we are using it to refine fuels, to make fertilizers. then as an intermediate in chemical industry. But I'm not really seeing today that we would be using hydrogen as an energy storage, right? When Elon Musk decided that he's going to pursue the path of electric vehicles, he essentially picked up a technology that already existed there. He took a cell, 18650, from the laptop, and he just put lots of them together, and he built a Tesla Roadster, right? So he essentially took technology that was already used for energy storage. He just scaled it up, and that's what we are doing today. And the hydrogen fuel cell just doesn't fit in, because hydrogen is not historically used as energy storage. And I always tell people, hey, if you want to have a sustainable economy and you want to have green hydrogen, in Europe they have actually yellow hydrogen. Guess where it comes from, right? It's from solar energy. But here in the United States, we just call it green. So the efficiency of electrolysis is about 50%, right? Fuel cell has also 50%. So 50 times 50, that goes to 25. But we didn't factor in the energy needed to compress that thing, right? That's lots of energy that needs to. It's actually the pressure in the fuel cell vehicle in the tank is higher than the hydrogen that the chemical labs are using in a steel tank. So it's a huge pressure. Of course, it's a question of safety then, right? And the round trip efficiency is about 19%. So this is very little, as opposed to taking the renewable energy, charging the battery at about 90%. The transmission losses is about 6%. And then getting the energy back out of the battery and to inverter and wheels, that's another about 90%. So round trip, it's about 78%. And we didn't even talk about, we did that the hydrogen fuel cell is actually a hybrid vehicle. There could be a regime in the power mode that the electricity from fuel cell goes directly into the inverter and into wheels, but you also need to charge the battery to get available energy for peak demand, right? And when you have regen, you still need the battery for regen. So you still have losses here and there, even though that's flush because EV has regen as well. But still, what I'm trying to say is that the efficiency penalty for hydrogen vehicle, it's just huge. And the projections of cost is an equivalent about $8 per gallon. That was years ago. I don't know, what is it today? Do you have an idea?
No, it fluctuates, but I know it's up there. It's definitely like double at least what gas costs.
Right. Okay, so that was hydrogen. Now let's get into another hype technology. It's called solid state battery. Have you heard about it from some car makers like Toyota, Fisker, and stuff?
Yeah, it's been talked about for a long time. I mean, I remember I don't even know if it was 2018 or 2019, 2018, I think, that Henrik Fisker said that, they've completed it. It's going to be ready next year. And it's kind of one of those things that, it's always 2 years out, and we never get caught up with it. Toyota seems to say they have, but they're just the latest in a line of people that have said they have solid state batteries licked and they're going to be bringing it to market in a year or two. Let's see. Toyota says a lot of things.
Mhm.
Yeah. And Gary just made a comment that Toyota is hyping for hydrogen internal combustion engine. I've heard it before. It's even worse.
Yeah. And they also do full on marketing about self-charging hybrids. They create their own energy. So Toyota says a lot of things.
Yeah, we know all the rants from Fully Charged when Bob Llewellyn was very upset about how Toyota is marketing and advertising their hybrids.
Now Toyota's using the same language. I mean, Honda's starting to use self-charging hybrids in their advertising. So, you know, they're just, you know, they create their own energy. They're, you know, somehow magically,
Right.
you know, they charge themselves at no loss of energy. You know, they've you know, figured out something that nobody else could figure out. They
Yeah.
create their own energy.
That
And, you
comes
know-
with that comes with a deed to the Brooklyn Bridge.
Exactly.
So what is interesting that we are always, we tend to kind of beat Toyota for being against electric vehicles, but sometimes I think that Honda is even worse, because Toyota, at least they do have all electric vehicle available today. It's a BZ4X, right? And there are other brands, Lexus and Subaru, they have kind of rebadged copy, but Honda, I mean, this is a big disaster. Do they have at least something outside of US market?
I think I saw an electric Acura being
Well, they have the
talked-
Honda E, the little small car.
Yeah, that's
I drove one of those in Europe, actually. Pretty cool. I thought it was really cool and retro, but I mean, super short range and, you know, very expensive. So, but you know what, Stan, when you talk about that, and I'm one of the people that give Toyota the business more than Honda. Toyota is the largest automaker in the world, and they have massive resources. Honda is a tiny car company compared to Toyota. I mean, it's a big company, don't get me wrong, Honda, but compared to Toyota, it's a tiny company. They don't have nearly the resources that Toyota has to invest in, you know, research and development, and nobody has more battery tech experience than Toyota does. They have more battery experience than Tesla. I mean, they've been building EV, like hybrid powertrains and working with batteries for 25 years, and they've sold millions and millions of you know, hybrid vehicles with
Tom,
battery
come on.
packs.
It's a different type of a battery and different type of different
It's still
output.
electric. It's different, but it's battery experience. It's traction battery experience. Toyota has no excuse, in my opinion, not to have a good fully electric product line at this moment. I give Honda a little bit of a pass because Toyota has the resources. They're the largest automaker in the world, and some of these smaller car companies, particularly like Subaru just doesn't have the ability to spend, you know, $6 billion in research and development on a BEV, and that's why they're partnering with Toyota and even Honda's partnering with General Motors. Oh, go ahead.
I want to, Tom, you know, I ran an automobile business and I had Japanese contacts a lot. So Subaru is part of Fuji Heavy Industries. The Fuji empire is just as significant as Toyota. So that's one thing. Number two, I never was a big fan of Toyotas. I have thousands of vehicles in my business background, but I did buy a RAV4 plug-in, and my experience has been very positive. So I think Toyota, I don't like their hype on solid state batteries at all. And I lived through that in my electronics business in tertiary solid state semiconductor development. But the RAV4 is a decent car. I'm really.
I think it is. You have a RAV4 Prime?
I have a full electric and I have a RAV4 Prime. And we sometimes look at both at the same time. So anyway, thanks, Tom.
Yeah, well, the RAV4 that you have, the fully electric one, is all Tesla. You know, they didn't develop that at all. The whole platform is Tesla tech. But the RAV4 Prime is actually a really good plug-in hybrid, a really good plug-in hybrid, actually. And that's why I know Toyota can make really good electric vehicles. They have great experience and tech. They have fantastic engineers. And I see a comment here, BZ4X is not a BEV. It is a BEV. It's just a terrible BEV. Toyota didn't give the division that developed it and marketed it much of a budget. It charges horribly. It has very poor range for 2023. You know, it drives pretty well, but it's just not a competitive vehicle. You can't even, if you're going a long road trip, you can't DC fast charge it and then drive, you know, 150 miles, DC fast charge it again. It won't continue to DC fast charge. It'll like shut off. It's just a terrible engineered car. And it was only because Toyota just simply didn't want to make a good electric vehicle. They didn't want to give the engineers the money to develop one, because they could make a hell of an electric vehicle if they wanted to.
I remember that early on when they launched it, the wheels were falling off. They had a recall on it.
And Stan, let me follow up on that. So yeah, as soon as they launched it, they had this recall, and the wheels were falling off. Now that can happen. All right. There's some people said they did it on purpose. They didn't do it on purpose. But here's the crazy thing. It took them like 2 months to solve it. Now, the BZ4X is similar like to a RAV4, let's say. It's a little bit smaller, but it's a similar type of vehicle. If that was a new RAV4, they just launched a new RAV4, and it had that problem, they would have solved it in like a week. Like, you can't tell me they would have suspended sales of RAV4 for 2 months while they figured out how to stop the lug nuts from falling off. It's just, they just simply are Toyota. And you know what? I don't blame, like, they can have any position they want. If they don't want to sell fully electric vehicles, that's fine. It's your company. You know, in my opinion, you're going to suffer in the long run. But if you don't, if you know, the Toyota management doesn't want to make electric vehicles and sell them, have at it. Sell whatever the hell you want. But, you know, in 2020, 2032, 2033, when the entire market's electric, let's see if you can get up to speed at that point. Maybe they can. Maybe they could just flick a switch and in 2 years have great electric vehicles. I don't think that that's the case, but, you know, I could be wrong.
Great. Tom, I think we will have to slowly wrap up, but let me ask you a last one question. So what would you advise to a person who has 40,000 available? What vehicle they should purchase?
Oh God.
ID4.
No, this is.
I have to think about that. To be honest with you, if it was a close friend of mine, what I would tell them is don't buy a new EV. Take your 40,000 and buy one that's like a year or two old, because you can get a $60,000 car for 40,000. That's like a year old. That's probably what I would really tell them to do. You'll get more bang for your buck and get an EV with, like, search for one that's got like 7,000 or 8,000 miles. That's a year and a half old. Somebody decided they just don't want an EV, and you can get great deals. There are fantastic deals. I love the Audi e-tron, and you can get like a 2-year-old e-tron that somebody spent $68,000 on for like 42 grand. You can get a nearly $70,000 car for $40,000.
Wow.
And that's, to me, you could even search like cars.com, look for like 2021 e-trons. They're ridiculously priced. And that's what I would tell somebody to do is don't go out and buy a new one. Get one that's like a year or two old, and you can get them for, I mean, I saw Polestars that cost 60 grand for like $40,000 that are like a year old. So
right.
That's what I would tell you to do.
Tom, thank you so much. I would say that this is actually very good news, because those days when we were buying new electric vehicles, we had to buy new because there were no used electric vehicles, right?
Yeah.
And now, actually, what it means that the market with used electric vehicles is finally here, and people have more choices. They can go with new, they can go with used. And even with used vehicles, now you can have federal tax credit up to 4,000. Of course, there is a limit. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the sales price must be less than 25,000.
Yeah.
And it's calculated as a 30% from the sales tax, from the sale. And so it's capped at 4,000. So I think this is great. And of course, in New Jersey, we have sales tax exemption, even for used electric vehicles. So this is great.
But let me add one thing, Stan.
Yes.
Coming out mid next year is the Volvo EX30, and it starts at like 36,000 and 35,000, I think. And I had the opportunity to check it out at like the first look event. And I like it at that price. it's a really
Yeah.
good deal. And Volvo has so many pre-orders. They just announced that they're going to be building it in a second factory to meet demand. So, you're probably not going to be able to get one for 35,000. There'll probably be some options attached to it, but you're looking at 40,000 or less for a brand new Volvo. It won't qualify for the federal tax credit if you purchase it, but it will as a lease, because
We
there's
know
that
that.
like lease
Yeah.
loophole that,
Yeah.
so that's a new EV coming out that I would keep my eye on. It's reasonably priced. And I thought it was I saw it in person. It's a really nice car.
Mhm.
How about
Yeah.
VinFast or BYD? Are they coming anytime soon?
Probably not. Well, VinFast is here. There's VinFasts are for sale in the US. I'm not sure exactly where, but I know they're out there.
California.
I know I've seen people have reported to me that they saw them like charging at charging stations and so forth. BYD, it's the Chinese companies are going to have a very difficult time here right now, at least because of the tariffs. It's like a 33% tariff, I think, on Chinese cars. So it makes them nearly impossible to sell here. But BYD, BYD does sell some cars here now. I think it's just for fleets. But BYD, NIO, XPeng Motors, Li Motors, they all want to sell here, but they're trying to figure out how to do it. The way they're probably going to do it is they're probably going to build factories in Mexico. And if they do that and they build the vehicles there, they won't be subject to these tariffs. So I would watch for the next couple of years. I bet you're going to see a bunch of Chinese car companies start building factories in Mexico. The BYD Dolphin is a really great car. If we had that available here, and it sells for like 30 something thousand, if that was here, you'd see them all over the place.
I just heard recently that Hungary made a deal with BYD and they will be building BYDs in Hungary.
BYD is a powerhouse.
Yeah, it will be for the European market, of course.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think times is up. We have to respect everyone's time and yours. So thank you very much, Tom, for joining us today. It was fun. And just for everyone else, you see the logo, State of Charge. Make sure that you subscribe to Tom's channel, and he has lots of great videos. So I think we'll just we'll call it a day for today.
Okay, guys, listen, thanks for having me. There's I see a lot of familiar faces out there. Andy, Gerald, Eric, Alex, a lot of Mario, a lot of you guys I know you personally, or I've seen you guys online. And thanks for having me, Stan. This was a lot of fun.
Very good.
Tom,